Welcome to Hope from History, where the ancestors teach yes you can, because yes we did. Addie Banks presents early Black entrepreneurs who have a history and business story to share. American Beauty, American Tragedy. History is the lives of great and ordinary people. Their extraordinary stories of navigating their historical period, their joys and their griefs. Augusta Savage, born Augusta Christine Fells, on February 29, 1892, lived an extraordinary life that needs sharing. Augusta was born in Green Cove Springs near Jacksonville, Florida. Her father was a Methodist minister. At an early age, her gift for art blossomed. She began making small animal figures out of natural red clay while a child. She was not encouraged. Her father, the Methodist minister, strongly opposed her art. She tells, quote, "My father licked me 4 or 5 times a week and almost whipped all the art out of me. He believed that my art was sinful, graven images in the Bible," unquote. But art was her life. When the family moved to West Palm Beach in 1915, Augusta accepted a job as principal of the high school. There, she was encouraged to teach clay modeling classes. This began her lifelong commitment to teaching art. Early love, heartbreak. In 1907, Augusta married John T. Moore and had her only child, Irene. John died shortly after the child's birth. In 1915, she married James Savage, but they divorced in the early 1920s. She maintained the name. Savage's art was prized, and in 1919 she obtained a booth at the Palm Beach County Fair. There she won a $25 prize and ribbon for most original exhibit. In 1921, she headed to the big city, New York City. Her talent was a ticket to the attention of accomplished sculptors. She won a scholarship to attend Cooper Union in New York City that same year. Savage won the placement in competition with 142 men on the waiting list. She impressed with her talent and skills. She completed the 4-year degree course in 3 years. There were disappointments. In 1923, Savage applied for a summer art program at the Fontainebleau School of Fine Arts in France, but she was rejected by the International Judging Committee because of race and gender. She was deeply upset and protested, beginning the first of many public fights for equal rights during her lifetime. After Cooper Union, Savage worked in Manhattan at a steam laundry to support herself and Florida family there due to illness and tragedies. She won her first art commission for a bust of W.E.B. Du Bois for the Harlem Library, then one for Marcus Garvey and one for NAACP William Pickens Sr. After a third marriage in 1923, Savage dedicated herself to art after he died of pneumonia in 1924. In 1925, Savage won a scholarship to the Royal Academy of Fine Arts in Rome that only covered tuition. Unable to raise additional funds, she declined the offer. In 1928, she won the Otto Kahn Prize in an exhibition at the Harmon Foundation with her submission of Head of a Negro. In 1929, the Urban League, Rosenwald Foundation, and Carnegie Foundation, along with donations from friends and supporters, allowed Savage at last to study in France. She was 37 years old. She was in art paradise, but the atmosphere changed While the studio was initially encouraging of her work, Savage later wrote that, quote, "The masters are not in sympathy, as they all have their own definite ideas and usually wish their pupils to follow their particular method," end quote. Savage struggled financially there. Black community at home held fundraising parties in Harlem and Greenwich Village. Black women's groups and Florida A&M teachers pooled resources to send her money. In 1929, with assistance from the Julius Rosenwell Fund, Savage enrolled in a leading art school in Paris. She studied sculpture under masters. She won awards in 2 Paris salons and 1 exposition. She toured France, Belgium, and Germany, researching sculpture in cathedrals and museums. Savage returned to the United States in 1931, energized from her studies and achievements, but she faced the Great Depression that effectively stopped art sales. But she refused to give in. Savage launched her Savage Studio of Arts and Crafts in a basement in Harlem and took the Renaissance by storm. Her studio was open to anyone who wanted to paint, draw, or sculpt, and they came and learned, and some became famous artists. Her school evolved into the Harlem Community Arts Center, where 1,500 people of all ages and abilities participated in her workshops, learned from her multicultural staff, and showed work around the city. She received funds from the Work Progress Administration, WPA, during the New Deal, but old struggles of discrimination between them arose when Savage insisted on a leadership role in projects. Young, gifted, and classy, Savage gained much respect from peers and the public. In 1937, she is pictured with Gwendolyn Bennett, Sarah West, Louise Jefferson, and Eleanor Roosevelt, former First Lady. She appears with Ernestine Rose and Roberta Bosley Hubert, honoring her sculpture of James Weldon Johnson, author of Lift Every Voice and Sing, in 1939. Savage opened 2 galleries, whose shows were well attended and well reviewed. But this was still Depression time, and there were few sales, resulting in the gallery's closing. Note the attendance of another acclaimed Black artist, Selma Burke. The last major showing of Savage's work was in 1939. While Savage continued to create masterful art, it was discouraging to produce and not earn a living wage. Most of her remaining 50 productions are now in museums. Gifted, Savage was one of 4 women, and only 2 blacks, to receive a professional commission from the Board of Design of the 1939 New York World's Fair. She created Lift Every Voice and Sing, also known as the harp, inspired by the song by James Weldon and Rosamond Johnson. The 16-foot-tall plaster sculpture was the most popular and most photographed work at the fair. Small metal souvenir copies were sold, and many postcards of the piece were purchased. The work was a reinterpretation of the harp, featuring 12 singing youth in graduating heights as the strings, with the harp soundboard transformed into an arm and a hand. In the front, a kneeling young man offered music in his hands. But Savage was not able to raise enough money to cast this masterpiece in bronze or to move and store it. Like other temporary installations, this sculpture was destroyed at the close of the fair. Deeply depressed by her financial struggles, in 1945, Savage moved to a farmhouse in rural New York. She cultivated a garden and sold pigeons, chickens, and eggs. She acquired a car and learned to drive. Supportive neighbors encouraged her to pursue her art and gifted art supplies. She created and taught art and sculpted friends and neighbors. Her few neighbors said that she was always making something with her hands. What a life! Still incredible in that many of her dreams were realized. There is hope in history, and Augusta Savage's life inspires us today to do what you are here to do, no matter what. In 1934, Augusta Savage became the first Black artist to be elected to the National Association of Women Painters and Sculptors. Take a look at some of Augusta Savage's work.